My name is Jessica Taylor, 32, and I never thought my success as a software engineer would turn into my greatest heartbreak. For 3 years, I sent my parents $5,000 every month to support their retirement in rural Michigan. I thought I was helping the people who sacrificed everything for me. Then, during a visit home, I accidentally saw their family group chat. The words, "our personal ATM," next to my name shattered my world. Everything I believed about family loyalty crumbled in an instant. If you're watching this from somewhere where family loyalty matters, please like and subscribe. I need to know I'm not alone in what I'm about to share. Growing up in Lakeville, Michigan was an exercise in stretching every dollar. Our small 3-bedroom house always needed repairs, with my dad, Robert, constantly putting off fixing the leaky roof or the creaky front steps because we simply couldn't afford it. Mom, Linda, worked double shifts at the local diner, coming home with swollen feet, but always managing to put dinner on the table. They never complained, but as a child, I understood the weight of financial struggle by the hushed conversations late at night when they thought I was asleep. "We'll figure it out next month," Dad would whisper to Mom. "Something will come through." But something rarely did. I remember the winter our heating broke down, and we spent 2 weeks huddled under blankets, boiling water to create steam until Dad could piece together enough side jobs to pay for repairs. Or the Christmas when gifts were handmade because an unexpected medical bill had emptied their savings account. Despite these challenges, my parents championed education. When I showed aptitude for mathematics and computer science in high school, they pushed me to apply for scholarships. The day the acceptance letter from Stanford arrived with a partial scholarship, Mom cried while Dad pretended something was in his eye. "This is your ticket out," Mom said, holding my hands. "Don't worry about us. Just fly." College wasn't easy. The partial scholarship covered tuition, but not living expenses. I worked 20 hours weekly at the campus IT help desk while maintaining a 4-point GPA. During holidays when classmates flew home, I stayed in nearly empty dorms, picking up extra shifts to save on travel expenses. I survived on ramen noodles and free campus event food, sending home whatever small amounts I could when Dad needed new work boots or Mom needed dental work they couldn't afford. After graduation, Silicon Valley welcomed me with open arms. My starting salary at a mid-sized tech company was more than my parents had ever made combined. My tiny studio apartment in San Francisco cost more than 3 mortgage payments on my childhood home, but I was finally able to help my family in meaningful ways. It started with $500 monthly after my first job, just enough to help with groceries and utilities. Dad initially refused, saying it wasn't right for a child to support parents, but I insisted. When I received my first major promotion 2 years later, I increased it to $2,000. With each career advancement, I raised the amount, eventually settling at $5,000 monthly for the past 3 years. "The money is for your retirement fund," I told them during a video call after setting up the automatic transfers, "and any medical expenses or home repairs you've been putting off." "Jessie, this is too much," Mom protested, though I noticed she didn't push very hard. "You guys sacrificed everything for me," I replied. "It's my turn to make sure you're comfortable." They sent photos of the new roof, the repaired porch, the updated bathroom with grab bars for safety. Each improvement made my 60-hour work weeks and tiny apartment feel worthwhile. I skipped vacations, brought lunch from home, and lived well below my means to ensure they would never worry about money again. Looking back, there were subtle signs I should have noticed. The designer handbag in the background of a video call that Mom quickly moved out of frame. Dad mentioning a fishing trip with his brothers that sounded more elaborate than their usual local lake excursions. Facebook photos showing them at restaurants much fancier than they'd ever frequented during my childhood. But I dismissed these thoughts as ungenerous. After decades of struggle, didn't they deserve some small luxuries? "The transfer went through for this month," I'd text. "Thank you, sweetheart." "That will help with the property taxes," came the reply, or Perfect timing. Your father has a doctor's appointment next week. Each time I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. While my friends bought vacation homes or invested in startups, I found purpose in supporting the people who had given me life. I believed I was their safety net, their security in old age, their reward for years of selfless parenting. I couldn't have imagined that behind their grateful texts and calls, they were laughing at my naivety and planning how to extract even more. Last September, I decided to surprise my parents for their 35th wedding anniversary. I hadn't been home in nearly 8 months due to a major product launch, and I missed them terribly. I booked a last-minute flight, arranged for a rental car, and headed to Michigan without telling them. Driving through my old neighborhood felt like traveling back in time, until I turned onto our street. The changes to my childhood home were immediately apparent. The shabby siding had been replaced with elegant stone and cedar. Professionally landscaped gardens replaced the patchy lawn I remembered. Even the mailbox had been upgraded to a decorative brick structure matching the new exterior. Wow, I whispered to myself. They really put the money to good use. As I pulled into the driveway, my eyes were drawn to a gleaming black Cadillac Escalade parked where my dad's rusted Ford pickup had always been. This wasn't a practical vehicle for 2 aging adults living on a country road that turned muddy with every rain. This was a status symbol, easily costing over $80,000. When I knocked on the door, Mom's surprised shriek and crushing hug momentarily pushed aside my confusion. Dad joined in, lifting me off my feet like he had when I was little. "Our girl is home," he announced, ushering me inside. The interior renovations were even more striking. Gone was the worn furniture I'd grown up with, replaced by what looked like a designer showroom. A massive flat-screen television dominated one wall, while another featured a built-in electric fireplace with marble surround. The kitchen had been completely gutted and rebuilt with custom cabinetry and high-end appliances I recognized from luxury home magazines. "You guys have been busy," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "The place looks amazing." "Well, we figured, at our age, we should enjoy some comforts," Mom replied, avoiding my eyes slightly. During dinner, I casually asked about the new SUV in the driveway. "Oh, that old thing," Dad waved dismissively. "Got such a good deal, couldn't pass it up. My back was killing me getting in and out of the truck. Doctor said I needed something, with better support." The explanation made sense on the surface, but something felt off. A sensible sedan would have offered better support at a third of the price. Still, I nodded and changed the subject. Later that evening, Mom showed off her new jewelry collection, including several pieces I recognized as high-end brands. She mentioned they were good costume pieces, but I spotted authenticity markings when she wasn't looking. The next morning, I bumped into Ellie Johnson, my best friend from high school who still lived in town. We grabbed coffee at the local cafe, catching up on years of news. "Your parents seem to be living their best lives these days," she commented. "I see them at the casino almost every time I go with my husband." "The casino?" I repeated. My parents had always been firmly against gambling, calling it a tax on people who can't do math. "Oh yeah, they're regulars now. Your dad even joined that high roller club they have, gets comped rooms and everything." I stirred my coffee slowly, processing this information. They must go just for fun occasionally. They've never mentioned being into gambling. Ellie gave me a strange look. "Well, they're there at least weekly from what I can tell. Your mom won some slot tournament last month. It was in the local paper." That evening, my aunt and uncle came over for dinner. The conversation flowed along with expensive wines I didn't recognize. During dessert, my Uncle Dan raised his glass in a toast. "To Jessica, the generous daughter who makes it all possible." An awkward silence fell before my father laughed too, loudly, and redirected the conversation. Mom shot Uncle Dan a look I couldn't quite interpret. As I packed to leave the next day, I tried to rationalize what I'd seen and heard. Perhaps they had saved more over the years than I realized. Maybe they had made some good investments. The casino visits could be innocent entertainment rather than a problematic habit. "You're coming back for Thanksgiving, right?" Mom asked, hugging me goodbye. "I'll try," I promised, though my product launch timeline made it unlikely. "Well, we could always come visit you," Dad suggested, "now that we have reliable transportation." "That would be great," I said, though the thought of them seeing my tiny apartment after witnessing their luxurious lifestyle made me uncomfortable. On the flight back to San Francisco, I calculated how much I had sent them over 3 years, $180,000. Enough for reasonable improvements and a solid retirement account, certainly. But had it all gone to luxury? Purchases instead? I pushed the thought away, feeling disloyal for even questioning them. When I landed, a text from Mom was waiting. "Miss you already. The refrigerator is making a funny noise. Might need to replace it soon." I replied immediately, "Let me know the cost when you get an estimate." 3 months passed before I could visit again. My father's 60th birthday seemed like the perfect reason to take a long weekend away from the office. This time I gave them advance notice, and they insisted on picking me up from the airport in the new Escalade. "No need to waste money on a rental car," Dad said, though I earned enough that a rental car was hardly a financial concern. The house had even more upgrades since my last visit. A home theater system had been installed in the basement, complete with reclining leather seats and surround sound. Mom proudly showed off her expanded closet, now the size of my entire bedroom, growing up, filled with clothes still bearing designer tags. "Just a few things I picked up on sale," she explained when she caught me looking at a $4,000 handbag I recognized from our company CEO's collection. Saturday morning, everyone slept in after a late night of celebration. I woke first and headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast as a surprise. I wanted to make my dad's favorite blueberry pancakes but couldn't remember the exact recipe. Mom's iPad was sitting on the counter, so I picked it up to search for a recipe similar to the one she'd used throughout my childhood. As I unlocked the screen with the family passcode that hadn't changed in years, a notification banner slid down from the top. New message in Family Finances group chat. Linda. ATM visit went well. She never suspects a thing. My finger hovered over the notification. This was clearly private, not meant for my eyes. But why would they refer to someone as an ATM? And why would suspicion be a concern? A sick feeling began forming in my stomach. I tried to ignore it and opened the browser to search for recipes, but the notification kept drawing my eyes back. Finally, my curiosity and growing unease won out. I tapped the message. The chat opened to reveal a group consisting of my parents, aunts, uncles, and even some cousins. I was notably absent from the member list. Scrolling up to see context, my blood ran cold as I realized the ATM they referred to was me. "The ATM is arriving Friday," my father had written a week earlier. "Time to play the grateful parents again." "How much do you think you can get this time?" my Uncle Dan replied. "Standard $5,000 monthly deposit. Plus, I'm going to mention some plumbing issues. Should be good for another $3,000 to $4,000, Dad responded. "Robert, you're a genius," my Aunt Susan chimed in. "Jessica is so gullible when it comes to family obligations." My hands began to shake as I scrolled further back, revealing months of similar exchanges. There were jokes about how to press the right buttons to get more cash, and strategies for appearing needy without seeming greedy. "The trick is to always mention medical concerns," Mom had written. "She never questions those." One thread discussed my surprise visit for their anniversary, with panic about hiding evidence of their spending before I arrived. Another contained photos of luxury purchases with captions like "Thanks, Jessica," and "Funded by the Bank of Daughter." Most devastating were screenshots of my own earnest messages expressing love and happiness about being able to help them, followed by mocking responses. "She actually believes we're putting this into a retirement account. Look how she lives, like a pauper while funding our lifestyle. Remember when she sent extra last Christmas because she couldn't come home? Used it for our Cancun trip. I found a photo of them on a luxury cruise ship, dated during the same week they'd told me. They couldn't video call because Dad was recovering from a medical procedure. There were casino membership cards, receipts for jewelry, and plans for a vacation property in Florida. The room seemed to spin around me. My stomach clenched so violently I thought I might be sick. 3 years of sacrifices, of living minimally, of working overtime to ensure I could send enough each month. And this was how they viewed me. Not as a loving daughter, but as an endless source of cash to be manipulated and mocked. The conversation about my current visit was perhaps the most painful. Remember to hide the new golf clubs before she arrives. Linda, wear the old sweater with the hole when you pick her up. Looks more sympathetic. We need to bring up the roof leaking again. That was good for $8,000 last time. The Golden Goose arrives tomorrow. Everyone be ready to play. Your parts. A message from my Aunt Susan read, "Do you think we could squeeze more from the Golden Goose? My Hawaii fund needs a boost." Tears blurred my vision as I came across a detailed plan to ask me for $30,000 for a critical medical procedure my father supposedly needed. They had fabricated symptoms, doctor's notes, and even practiced how to break the news to ensure maximum financial impact. I heard movement upstairs and quickly put the iPad down, retreating to the guest bathroom. Locking the door, I slid down against it until I sat on the cold tile floor, struggling to breathe through silent sobs. My entire relationship with my parents suddenly appeared as an elaborate con, a performance designed to extract maximum funds while providing minimum appreciation. Every grateful call, every update on home repairs, every medical concern had been calculated to keep the money flowing. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. Should I confront them immediately? Gather more evidence first? Leave without saying anything? The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger, her foundation of family trust completely shattered. "Jessica, are you making coffee?" Mom's voice called from the hallway. "Be right there," I replied, amazed that my voice sounded almost normal while my world collapsed around me. I made it through breakfast with mechanical politeness, excusing myself afterward to catch up on some work emails. Back in the guest room, I began a methodical investigation of everything I'd taken for granted. First, I reviewed my parents' Facebook accounts more carefully than ever before. Photos I'd scrolled past previously now revealed a pattern of luxury I'd been too trusting to notice. There they were at a 5-star resort in the Bahamas during the week they told me they were visiting my sick aunt. Multiple dinner photos at restaurants where entrees cost more than I typically spent on food for 3 days. Dad proudly displaying golf clubs beside a membership sign for an exclusive country club. I texted my younger cousin Maya, who was still in college and not part of the family group chat. "Hey Maya, random question. Have Mom and Dad been traveling much lately?" Her innocent reply cut deep. "Are you kidding? They're barely ever home anymore. Cruise to Alaska last month, casino trips like every weekend, and I think they're closing on a condo in Tampa next week. Aunt Linda said they're living their best life now that you're helping with their finances. So nice of you." While my parents were occupied with birthday preparations, I slipped into their home office. The desk drawer where they had always kept important documents was unlocked. Inside, I found bank statements showing minimal savings despite the 18 months of $5,000 deposits. Instead, there were withdrawals to luxury retailers, travel agencies, and casinos. A folder labeled medical caught my eye. Inside were receipts for spa treatments, cosmetic dental work, and even a consultation for a minor cosmetic procedure, all dated during periods when they had claimed major medical expenses to me. Another folder contained brochures for vacation, properties in Florida with notes in my father's handwriting about financing options. "Use roof repair money from Jay," was scribbled in the margin of one. I photographed everything with shaking hands, feeling like an intruder in the home where I grew up, but needing evidence of what I was discovering. That afternoon, I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen while I approached from the hallway. I stopped short when I heard my name. "Jessica seems distracted today," Mom was saying. "Do you think now is a good time to bring up the roof repairs?" "Definitely," Dad replied. "I mentioned water spots yesterday, so the seed is planted. We should ask for $15,000 this time. The realtor said that's what we need to close on the Tampa property." "What about the medical angle? Should we use that too?" "Save it for Christmas. Double dip." Their casual, calculated tone sent ice through my veins. I retreated silently, unable to face them yet. That night, I lay awake replaying every interaction from the past 3 years. The time I'd skipped my company retreat to send extra money for Dad's supposed physical therapy. Working through pneumonia because I couldn't afford to take unpaid time off after sending funds for their property tax increase. My tiny studio apartment with the leaking faucet I couldn't afford to fix because I'd just sent money for their water heater replacement. Each memory twisted like a knife. It wasn't just the money, though the financial betrayal was staggering. It was the mockery. The knowledge that while I worried about them, sacrificed for them, and loved them, they were laughing at my gullibility. Sharing my private messages with extended family for entertainment, competing to see who could extract more from me. The deepest cut was realizing they saw me not as their daughter, but as a resource to be exploited. The parents who had taught me about honesty and hard work had been systematically lying to me for years. Morning came after a sleepless night. As I helped Mom prepare breakfast, she casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, we got an estimate on the roof. The water damage is worse than we thought." "How much?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Around 15,000, she sighed dramatically. "But don't worry about it. We'll figure something out." "That seems high for a repair," I commented. "Well, it needs complete replacement now. If we'd had the money to fix it earlier, might have been cheaper." The practiced guilt trip slid out smoothly. Later that afternoon, while searching for a charger in the living room desk, I found a handwritten note in my father's distinctive scrawl. It was titled "Strategy for Jay" and contained bullet points. Always thank profusely for regular monthly. Mention sacrifices made for college. Remind of family loyalty. Use health concerns for extra funds. Show old photos when asking for large amounts. Never mention vacations or purchases. Delete evidence from shared cloud albums. It was a playbook for manipulating me, written in my own father's hand. In that moment, something hardened inside me. The shock and hurt crystallized into resolve. This would end now, on my terms. I spent Sunday morning preparing for the confrontation I knew needed to happen. I organized the photos I'd taken, screenshots from social media, and notes on conversations I'd overheard. I practiced what I would say, determined to remain calm and factual despite the emotional turmoil inside me. "I'm taking everyone to dinner tonight," I announced as we finished lunch. "For your birthday, Dad. Somewhere nice." "You don't have to do that, sweetheart," Mom protested weakly. "I want to. 7 o'clock. My treat." My tone left no room for argument. I reserved a private dining room at the most expensive restaurant in town, figuring it was appropriate for what would likely be our last meal together. When we arrived, my parents looked delighted at the luxury surroundings, completely unaware of what was coming. After ordering drinks and appetizers, I smiled. Across the table. "So, tell me more about the roof situation." Dad launched into a detailed explanation about water damage, structural concerns, and the urgent need for complete replacement. Mom added comments about potential mold and health risks. Their performance was flawless, honed by years of practice. "And the estimate was 15,000? I confirmed. "Unfortunately, yes," Dad sighed. "We've been getting by with patches, but the roofer says that's not an option anymore." I nodded thoughtfully. "That's a significant amount. And you mentioned some medical concerns too?" They exchanged a quick glance that I would have missed if I hadn't been looking for it. "Well," Mom began hesitantly, right on cue, "your father's..." Back has been giving him trouble. The doctor recommends a procedure that our insurance won't fully cover. How much would that cost? I asked, maintaining my concerned expression. Probably around $12,000, Dad interjected. But don't worry about that part now. The roof is more urgent. I reached for my purse and removed a folder, placing it on the table between us. Before we discuss amounts, I'd like to show you something I found. Their expressions remained curious, unsuspecting. I opened the folder and placed the printed group chat messages on the table, facing them. The heading Family Finances was clearly visible, along with my father's message about the ATM arriving Friday. Their faces transformed in an instant. Dad's complexion went ashen while Mom's eyes widened in alarm. The masks they had worn so perfectly slipped completely. "Where did you get that?" Dad demanded, reaching for the papers. I placed my hand firmly on the printouts. "I saw the notification on the iPad yesterday. The group chat you both participate. In where you refer to me as your personal ATM and the golden goose?" "Jessica, those were just jokes," Mom attempted, her voice unnaturally high. "Sometimes we say silly things in family chats." "Jokes?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "Was it a joke when you wrote detailed strategies for manipulating me emotionally? Was it a joke when you shared my private messages for everyone to mock? Was it a joke when you spent the money for Dad's physical therapy on a cruise while I worked through pneumonia to send extra?" Dad switched tactics. "Now listen here, young lady. After everything we sacrificed, raising you, putting you through school, you owe us some comfort in our retirement. I've calculated exactly what you sacrificed financially for my education," I replied, pulling out another paper. "My scholarship covered 80% of Stanford. You contributed approximately $28,000 total over 4 years. I've sent you $180,000 in the past 3 years alone." I looked directly into their eyes. "But this isn't about the money. It's about the betrayal. It's about discovering that while I worried about your well-being, skipped vacations, lived in a tiny apartment, and worked myself to exhaustion, you were mocking me behind my back, planning how to extract more, competing to see who could manipulate me best." Mom began to cry, but I recognized the performance from past interactions. The timing was too perfect, the progression of sniffles to sobs too practiced. "The roof estimate is fake, isn't it?" I asked. "The money is for the Tampa condo." Their shocked expressions confirmed my suspicion. "Jessica, you don't understand," Dad began. "I understand perfectly now. I understand that I've been supporting not just your comfortable retirement, but your luxury lifestyle. I understand that the medical bills were spa treatments. I understand that the home repairs were vacations and gambling." My phone began buzzing with incoming calls and texts. Dad had apparently alerted the family under the table. Messages from aunts and uncles started pouring in, a coordinated attempt to control the situation. "Your Aunt Susan wants to know if—" "I'm giving you a hard time," I said, showing them the screen. "Interesting timing." "Family helps family," Dad insisted, abandoning pretense. "You make good money. Why shouldn't we benefit from your success?" "Because you lied. Because you mocked me. Because you saw me not as your daughter, but as your personal bank account." My voice finally cracked. "Do you know what hurts the most? Not a single message in that entire chat showed any genuine concern for me. Not one question about my happiness, my health, my dreams, just discussions of how to get more money." "That's not fair," Mom protested. "We love you." "You love what I provide," I corrected. "There's a difference." I stood up, placing an envelope on the table. "Inside is a check for $2,000. It's the last money you'll ever receive from me. It should cover 1 month's expenses while you adjust your lifestyle." "You can't be serious," Dad sputtered. "After everything we've done for you?" "I am absolutely serious. I've also frozen the automatic transfers from my account. The ATM is permanently closed." Mom grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "Jessica, please, we can explain everything." You already have explained everything in that group chat. You've shown me exactly who you are and how you see me. I just wish I'd seen it sooner. As I walked out of the restaurant, my phone continued to explode with messages from family members, all suddenly concerned about my well-being, all coincidentally reaching out at the exact same moment. For the first time in 3 years, I turned my phone off and enjoyed the silence. The fallout was swift and intense. Within hours of leaving the restaurant, my social media accounts were flooded with private messages and public posts from extended family members. The coordinated nature of the response only confirmed how many people had been involved in the deception. "Family takes care of family," wrote my Uncle Dan on Facebook. "Some people forget where they came from when they get a little success." Aunt Susan called 17 times in one night, leaving voicemails that ranged from tearful pleas to angry accusations. "Your parents gave you everything and this is how you repay them? By abandoning them when they need you most?" Cousins I had barely spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my character and family obligations. The family narrative quickly solidified. I was the ungrateful daughter who had achieved success and then selfishly cut off my struggling parents. The manipulation tactics evolved as days passed. First came the guilt trips about family loyalty and obligation. When those failed to move me, medical emergencies mysteriously multiplied. Mom texted about Dad's dangerously high blood pressure, caused by the stress of our confrontation. Dad emailed about Mom's anxiety attacks that required expensive medication. When health concerns didn't work, they escalated to threats. "We're going to have to sell the house because of you," Dad wrote, conveniently forgetting that my contributions had paid off their mortgage entirely the previous year. The most disturbing development came when family members began contacting my friends and colleagues. My childhood friend Ellie called, confused about why my aunt had reached out to her on Facebook asking her to talk some sense into Jessica about family obligations. A cousin even found my company email and sent a message to several people in my department about my abandonment of my elderly parents. Fortunately, my manager was understanding when I explained the situation. Through it all, I maintained my silence with my parents while working through my emotions with a therapist I began seeing twice weekly. "What you're experiencing is a form of financial abuse," my therapist explained during our third session. "The manipulation, the guilt, the coordinated pressure from multiple family members, these are classic tactics used by financial abusers." "But I'm the one with the money," I countered, confused. "Abuse isn't always about taking your money directly. Sometimes it's about controlling you through your money, making you feel obligated to provide it, and punishing you when you establish boundaries." These sessions helped me navigate the overwhelming guilt that threatened to drown me during weak moments. I began to recognize the difference between genuine family love and transactional relationships disguised as love. My support system emerged from unexpected places. Coworkers invited me to weekend activities when they noticed I seemed down. My neighbor Sarah began including me in her family dinners. Online communities for adult children of manipulative parents provided validation and strategies for maintaining boundaries. The financial consequences for my parents became apparent through social media posts from relatives who didn't realize we were no longer in contact. The country club membership wasn't renewed. The Tampa condo plans fell through. The luxury lifestyle built on my income couldn't be sustained without it. Some family members began distancing themselves from my parents as the true situation became clearer. A few younger cousins sent anonymous messages of support, afraid to publicly side with me against the family patriarchs. "Your parents told everyone you cut them off because they asked to borrow money once," wrote my college-age cousin Maya. "But I heard them bragging about how much they got from you monthly. Stay strong, some of us know the truth." My 30th birthday arrived 6 weeks after the confrontation. For the first time in my adult life, no call came from my parents. Instead of feeling sad, I felt strangely liberated. My friends surprised me with a dinner party, complete with homemade cake and thoughtful gifts. To chosen family, my friend, Derek toasted, raising his glass. Looking around at the faces of people who wanted nothing from me but my happiness, I finally understood the difference between obligation and love. These people had no biological claim on me, no years of child rearing to leverage, yet they showed more genuine care than those who had raised me. The lowest point came when I discovered my parents had shared partial, edited screenshots of our text conversations with family members, carefully selected to make me appear cold and ungrateful. The violation of privacy felt like the final betrayal. Yet somehow, this rock-bottom moment became a turning point. Seeing the lengths they would go to manipulate others' perceptions rather than acknowledge their behavior clarified everything. This wasn't a misunderstanding we could resolve. This was a fundamental difference in how we viewed family relationships. I blocked their numbers, email addresses, and social media accounts, not out of anger, but as an act of self-preservation. Each contact had left me emotionally drained for days afterward. The constant justification, explanation, and defense of my boundaries was exhausting. In their absence, I began to rebuild. I moved to a slightly larger apartment with a real bedroom instead of a studio. I took my first actual vacation in 4 years, a week-long hiking trip in Colorado. I started contributing to my retirement account at the maximum level. Most importantly, I began to recognize my own worth beyond what I could provide financially to others. For so long, my value in my family had been tied to my earning potential and generosity. Dismantling that belief system was painful but necessary. You're allowed to have boundaries, my therapist reminded me in every session. You're allowed to expect respect. You're allowed to walk away from relationships that harm you, even when those relationships are with family. Slowly, painfully, I began to believe her. The first 6 months after discovering the truth were the hardest. I experienced insomnia for the first time in my life, often lying awake replaying conversations and interactions, looking for signs I should have noticed earlier. Trust became difficult, not just with family but with everyone. I questioned people's motives for basic kindness, wondering what they really wanted from me. My therapist helped me understand that these were normal responses to betrayal trauma. Your foundation of trust was severely damaged, she explained. Rebuilding it takes time and conscious effort. We worked on identifying patterns of manipulation I had normalized growing up, the guilt trips when I pursued my own interests instead of family obligations, the subtle digs about my appearance or achievements that kept me seeking approval, the implied comparisons to cousins who visited more or helped out around the house that maintained a sense of never quite measuring up. Understanding these patterns helped me recognize them in other relationships and set healthier boundaries. I began practicing small acts of saying no without justification or apology. At first, this felt almost physically painful, as if I was violating some fundamental law of existence. Eventually, it became easier. 3 months into therapy, I joined a support group for adults dealing with financially exploitative family relationships. Hearing others share similar experiences reduced my isolation. Many members were successful professionals whose families had come to view them as resources rather than individuals. My mother told everyone at church that my promotion meant I could buy her a new car, shared one woman. When I refused, she said I was punishing her for being a good parent. My parents took out credit cards in my name after I cut them off, another group member revealed. They felt entitled to it because they had raised me. These stories helped me understand that what had happened wasn't unique to me, nor was it my fault. It reflected broader patterns of family dysfunction around money and boundaries. Professional changes followed my personal growth. I had always been the employee who took on extra projects, worked weekends without complaint, and rarely took vacation days. As I learned to value myself beyond what I produced, my work habits shifted. I set office hours and honored them. I delegated appropriately. I used my vacation time for actual rest instead of working remotely. Surprisingly, these boundaries improved my performance. My focus increased, my creativity expanded, and my leadership skills developed. 6 months after the confrontation with my parents, I received the largest promotion of my career. The additional income now went toward investments in myself rather than supporting my parents' lifestyle. I enrolled in a master's program I'd been postponing. I consulted with a financial advisor about retirement planning. I made a down payment on a small condo of my own. One unexpected ray of light appeared 8 months after the confrontation. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's younger sister who had largely stayed out of the family drama, reached out via email. "I owe you an apology," she wrote. "I was part of that group chat. I didn't contribute much, but I saw what was happening and said nothing. The way the family has treated you is wrong, and I'm deeply sorry for my role in it." We met for coffee during her business trip to San Francisco. Her genuine remorse and willingness to acknowledge the family's dysfunction without excusing it was refreshing. "Your parents have always had unhealthy attitudes about money," she admitted. "They measure their worth by material possessions and status symbols. When you became successful, they saw it as their opportunity to finally have the lifestyle they felt entitled to." "Did they ever express concern about how I was doing?" I asked, still searching for evidence that they had cared about me beyond what I could provide. Patricia hesitated. "I wish I could say yes. But honestly, the conversations were always about strategies to get more from you, never about your well-being." Though painful, her honesty helped me accept reality and move forward without the lingering hope that perhaps I had misunderstood or overreacted. My parents made several attempts to re-establish contact without acknowledging their behavior. Birthday. Cards arrived with no mention of what had transpired, just expectations to resume our relationship as if nothing had happened. Holiday invitations came with guilt-laden messages about family belonging together. Each contact required difficult decisions about how to respond. With my therapist's guidance, I maintained my boundaries while releasing the anger that had initially fueled them. I returned cards unopened. I declined invitations politely but firmly. I redirected flying monkeys by simply stating, "This is a private matter between my parents and me." The hardest part was accepting that I could still love my parents while acknowledging they were harmful to my well-being. Love and safe interaction were separate issues. I could honor what they had given me in childhood while protecting myself from their current behavior. "You can love people from a distance," my therapist reminded me. "Love doesn't require accepting mistreatment." As my healing progressed, I found purpose in helping others. I developed a financial literacy workshop specifically for young professionals from challenging family backgrounds. We discussed not just budgeting and investing, but setting financial boundaries with family, managing guilt around success, and identifying financial manipulation. The workshop expanded into a monthly support group, then a nonprofit organization providing resources and community. Helping others navigate similar situations accelerated my own healing. Each time I shared my story, its power over me diminished. "True family supports your growth, not just your wallet," became our organization's unofficial motto. I learned that blood makes you related, but trust and respect make you family. 2 years after discovering the truth, I can say I'm genuinely grateful for what happened. Not because the betrayal wasn't painful, but because it forced me to confront patterns that would have continued indefinitely otherwise. It pushed me to develop authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. It taught me to value myself intrinsically rather than for what I could provide others. The parents I thought I had never existed, the loving, supportive family I believed in was largely performance designed to maintain financial support. Accepting this reality was excruciating but necessary for building an authentic life. I don't regret giving. I regret not requiring respect alongside gratitude. I regret not establishing boundaries that protected my well-being while still being generous. I regret believing that family obligation should override all other considerations, including self-respect. If you're watching this and recognizing similar patterns in your own family dynamics, please know you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships. Generosity should come from love, not manipulation or guilt. And most importantly, your value extends far beyond your financial contributions to others. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced financial manipulation from family members? What boundaries have you set to protect yourself while maintaining relationships? Like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone in these struggles. Remember that chosen family can be just as meaningful as biological connections, and sometimes healthier. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength in creating relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation.